All right. SAP migration strategies for Azure. How many, okay, that's SAP, okay. How many people speak Japanese here? Okay, there's a few SAP guys, okay. For those who do not know what SAP is like a giant Quicken on steroids. For those who don't know what Quicken is, sorry, you're definitely in the wrong presentation. So basically, SAP is ERP software that runs the Fortune 500. Microsoft is one of the companies that pretty much runs on SAP. So we have, SAP for our internal financials, HR, supply chain, and so on. And for a lot of companies, moving their corporate, ERP backbone to the cloud is one of the key things they want to achieve. And so what I want to talk about really quick is what are we doing here at Microsoft? What kind of SAP applications, SAP footprint do we have? So you can kind of compare with what you have. What were some of the Azure migration strategies that we used? And a lot of these don't just apply to SAP. A lot of them apply to any kind of other mission-critical business application. Some of the lessons learned, mostly good, some not so good. I'm an IT guy, so I'll just tell you the good and the bad. And then how do you optimize for cost? How do you really take advantage of the cloud and save a lot of money, and then a bunch of white papers as well. My name is Hans Reuter. I work in IT. I'm not a sales guy, so we can go in questions afterwards. We can go super techie. We can write some ABAP code on the whiteboard. I'm all good with that. And I'd say let's just meet afterwards here, and I'll be happy to go deep. You can also send me an email with questions, hans.reuter@microsoft.com. Super easy. First name, last name @microsoft.com. I'll be happy to answer that. And, I'm also at ASAC Sapphire all the time, or other SAP Tech Ed next week, or other questions that pop up. Happy to answer those. So if you look at our SAP footprint at Microsoft, the history actually goes way back to 1993, the upper left corner there. That looks like he's fresh out of high school. That's Bill Gates and Hasso Plattner. And that's when they signed the first agreement between Microsoft and SAP. Microsoft realized, hey, our homegrown software just isn't doing it to run our financials. We had some mainframe stuff, some VAX, remember those? Some VAX VMS stuff. And so we're like, hey, let's standardize on an ERP package. And so we signed a deal. It's been going ever since, and then I think earlier this year at ASAC Sapphire, some of you may have seen the various announcements. We've really been great partners and, 5% competitors as well. But overall, it's been a great ride. And really, there's three relationships. So, we have a go-to-market relationship where we jointly develop products. We're a technology partner, but most, and, for me, most important as an IT guy is we're an SAP customer. We run the mission-critical business on SAP, on Microsoft. We're the only platform vendor, like Google, Amazon, Microsoft. We're the only platform vendor that runs all of their core business on SAP, on our own cloud platform. And we have a large SAP instance. We're definitely in the top 1% to 2% in the world. We have, of course, ERP. That's the big blue box on the left. To give you an idea, that's about 55 terabytes, 115,000 users. So that's massive. That's a single global instance worldwide. Other companies do it by region, by subsidiary or whatever. We decided let's just do it for one to bind them all. And that's a good base over there. And then we have a bunch of other SAP applications. And then of course lately in the last 2 years, we've added a lot of SAP SaaS services, some of which are now running on Azure as well. For example, SuccessFactors. And so that's really kind of the view of SAP applications at Microsoft. Most of these systems have been around for up to 23 years. So they're big, they're historically grown. And so if you kind of look at our ERP system, like I said, it's about 55 terabytes. We compressed it heavily on SQL down to about 17 because, storage savings. And from a throughput, we're doing about 300 million transaction steps a month. That's average, right? Thanksgiving is coming up. It'll definitely be more. Q2 close in December, annual close in June, you definitely see this going a lot higher. But one of the other numbers that I think sticks out really well is this availability here. This is the platform availability. This is on commodity, public cloud, nothing special for us. We're Microsoft. It's the standard public cloud offering. I don't get like a sweetheart deal. I pay the same cost as you would pay. I get the same SKUs that everybody else gets. We're getting about 4.5, close to 5 nines. And this is a large landscape, about 650 servers. And so, this has been running on Azure since we migrated fully in February. So to give you an idea of how we did this, what are some typical migration strategies? Well, first of all, what were the reasons to move to Azure? Hey, we're Microsoft IT. There was a showcase aspect. I'm not going to lie about that. We're doing dog fooding, right? First and best, so that we get the bloody noses instead of our customers. And at the same time, we're running mission-critical systems, so that always keeps my life very interesting. But the big driver was cost. When you buy a physical asset or even a virtual asset for your on-premise data center, you're sizing that for the lifespan of the asset. Let's say you're keeping an asset, a database server around for 3 years. You have growth, you're sizing that for those 3 years, which means really the first 2.5 years, it's oversized. You're spending more money than you should have to. Now, nobody gets fired for that because things are running faster than they should. Your business partners are happy. Hey, things are running way below SLA or, much better than SLA. So that's all good, but in reality, you're spending money that you shouldn't have to spend. Your sizing horizon, when you look at your system sizes, your sizing horizon is about 3 years out, and that's what ours was. Now that we're on Azure, we're sizing 1 to 3, tops maybe 6 months out. We don't worry about what's going to happen next year with the system growth. I'm just assuming infrastructure on demand. It's there when I need it. The other thing is what we call tight sizing. Your SAP system, processing demand isn't flat. You have quarter ends, annual closes. You have maybe like, in our case, Thanksgiving, retail, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. That's massive. With the cloud, you can elastically scale up, add additional application servers, and afterwards you're done and you take them out again. So instead of over-provisioning for those hot periods, you just follow with your elastic cloud what the actual system demand is and just keep a very tight few percent above the actual demand. And so you're saving money. And then last but not least, systems that you don't need. Question? Pardon?
Are you using reserved instances?
Oh, yeah. So question is, are we using reserved instances or on demand? For production, for test, for DR, for the critical test systems, we're using reserved instances where you will save 60-70% over typical cost. For everything else, it's on demand, and that depends. Typically the sweet spot is between 60 and 80 hours per week of use. You should, if it's like that or higher, then you should go to reserved. Otherwise, you stick with the pay on demand. And those pay on demand instances, you should snooze them when you don't need them. We have dev systems, developers on the weekend, like Friday night, we have a development team in India, we have a development team in Redmond. Turn them off. It snoozes over the weekend. And then when the developers come in Monday morning, you turn them back on. You don't pay for that over the weekend. It's like your laptop going to sleep. Same with your SAP systems. There's a complete different level of agility in the cloud. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, we bought this Finnish phone company. Awesome deal. It was so great that we sold it rather quickly. And we were in a meeting with legal, and they said, hey, by the way, we're moving up the timeline. Can you archive things faster? And we're in this meeting, and our head basis architect, she goes in, she logs on to Azure, bumps up app servers, doubles database server, and so on. And 60, 90 seconds later, she says, yeah, no problem. I don't think I've ever seen lawyers that confused because they're not used to those kind of answers from IT. This, oh yeah, nope, you need more capacity, you need bigger, smaller, whatever. We can do all that. It's Azure, it's cloud. You just elastically size up and size down. A lot of test systems that we used to have around permanently in the past, I'll build them on the fly. Oh, you need a test system tomorrow? Yeah, no problem, let's just build it. Within Azure, it takes a few minutes. Then we have an SAP image, you install that, and you're up within like maybe 3 hours, whatever times it takes to apply your backup. Reliability, with Azure availability sets, you easily get to 99.99 guaranteed. You saw the earlier slide, 99.998. I can tell you our on-premise availability was a lot worse than that. I think most customers are happy when they hit like 99.9. Sounds great. Really means you still have about a day of downtime a year. For a multinational, that's rough. And then, of course, security. Azure, as a commercial cloud offering, gives you a ton of security options. As far as sizing strategy goes, for those that speak Japanese, I would say look at the SAP Quick Sizer. Just be aware that the SAP Quick Sizer is a little conservative. It comes in a bit on the high-end side. So, if you're not sure, I'd say go a little smaller. You can always go bigger later. Now, this is a culture change for IT, right? IT guys are used to bigger is better and just go with the big iron and it'll be fine. Nobody will ever complain about the system running too fast. Well, you have to pay for it. So, I'd say come in lean and mean, and then you can always size up. And then once you have a good reference size established, it's easy to kind of extrapolate from there. Hey, I have a system, it's sized perfectly. I have another one that's twice as big. Hey, we'll just go with twice the number of app servers, right? Very easy to kind of use it as a reference. Make sure you look at CPU, at memory, at IOPS, storage throughput, and all of those. And, really, ultimately, you're going to see cost savings. Typical average when we talk to customers, anywhere from 5 to 15%. At Sapphire, there was a company, a Canadian pharmaceutical, that claimed 40%. I'm not sure what they did on-prem. So that's definitely an outlier. But, you should be able to see 5 to 15% easily. And that's without jumping through a lot of hoops. As far as the actual migration, I'm just going to jump one slide forward. This is our landscape. The verticals, the vertical columns are the different SAP products. The horizontals are the different SAP landscapes, sandboxes, dev systems, test systems, DR, all the way to production. There's two strategies you can do this. Most companies naturally will go with a horizontal strategy, right? Start with the sandboxes, work your way up. Eventually, you end up in production. And that way, you drive numbers quickly, you get good throughput, and you can show progress to upper management. Hey, look, we already moved X%. But if you also want to drive learnings on how to administer systems in production in Azure, how to do patching, kind of a rolling maintenance, how do you dynamically size up, size down, how do you start and stop, how do you snooze, I'd say do a mix, also do a vertical strategy, and that's exactly what we did. So we basically cherry-picked a few systems that are important, but maybe not quite as critical. Duet, anybody remembers Duet, right? So Duet, a bunch of other systems, and said, we're just going to take the whole stack, dev all the way to prod, move them to Azure so we can drive those early learnings on how to do things in production. And really, that's what we did. And so horizontal strategy, right, drives the fast growth of numbers in Azure and the percentage, and then the vertical strategy to really kind of drive those production learnings. And it will also help you drive, some of the discussions around automation. Hey, I want to patch things. I want to size up, size down. I don't want to do this manually. I want to do this with a PowerShell script. Really easy to do. There's a couple things out on GitHub already. Our internal IT group will put out more things on GitHub over Christmas. We're currently reviewing that with legal. So, if you're doing things like that early on in production with a vertical strategy, your team scales up quicker and learns faster. So the other thing that you see here, all these little snoozing, the Z's, those are all the systems that are being snoozed, either on the weekends or in some cases, kind of between Christmas and New Year's Eve, where not a lot of stuff is happening with some teams. Or, the sandboxes, they're now turned off by default. When somebody comes in and they want to work them, they have to turn them on. And I'll show you that in a second how we do that. So you see the majority of our systems is snoozed. We're saving about $200,000 to $300,000, depending on how you look at it, per year just by snoozing these dev boxes. And those are the on-demand, those are not reserved instances. To show you kind of a timeline of how we did this, obviously, Microsoft IT, we're doing the dog fooding. I don't even want to call it beta software. It's like bloody, cut your arms up kind of alpha software. I mean, it's really bad. So we did the early stuff that lasted until about February of 2016. And we felt at that point, hey, this is rock solid. We're ready to go. So green solid line is Azure. The shaded lines are the plans. Red was on-prem physical, and blue is on-prem virtual. And so you see the plan looked all nice and even. The reality actually wasn't too far off. So that worked out quite well. So in February 2016, we had moved a few sandboxes and we said, hey, if we really want to do this right, let's automate this. Let's write PowerShell scripts, take a backup, restore it to the cloud, allocate the Azure instances, do the failover. This is all scriptable. And so you see that migration rate is now starting to tick up. And then in February 17, we said, hey, migration is working really well. Those scripts are tested and super solid. Let's just go full out. Now we have a year-end freeze here. That's why there's a slowdown. But you see suddenly it's just, full speed ahead. Our original timeline was August of 2018. Things are working out so well. We said, hey, we're going to be able to finish this up in January or February. Let's just do it. Why February? Well, so our year-end close is in June. And so, of course, we want to make sure that, we do it in February. We still have February month end, which is not reported to Wall Street. So in case something goes sideways, we're still okay. Then we have March quarter end, which is Q3. It's not a huge quarter for us. There's a good kind of baptism by fire, but it's a small fire. And then we still have April and May before the big June annual close happens. So that's really the big fire there. And so we said, if we migrate in February, we have 5 more critical events where we can test this out, make sure it's sized right. And, I'm not saying we did testing in production, but, you want to have a little bit of safety buffer and don't want to be too risk friendly. And so that worked really well. We finished actually 6 months ahead. Now, as far as, kind of lessons learned, there's quite a few things, good and bad. First of all, for those that speak Japanese, as you know, an SAP system consists of 3 components: database, app servers, central instance or central services instance. They must move together. You cannot leave your database on-prem, move app servers to the cloud. The latency will kill you. That's just an SAP architectural limitation. It doesn't matter if you're doing this on Azure, Google, or AWS. If it's an SAP system, all 3 components have to move together. Okay, so that's out of the way. If you're looking at your SAP landscapes, your individual SAP applications, depending on your business processes, there may be some dependencies for real-time traffic. I'll give you an example. So we have an ERP system. We're processing a sales order in that system. I do a call out to my global trade system to make sure that sales order is getting checked against government blacklists, so I don't sell Xboxes to terrorists. That's coming back into the ERP system. Then I do a second call out to my supply chain system, making sure that I have stock that's available to promise, and then it comes back. So I really have these 3 systems, ERP, global trade, and supply chain, tightly connected. If one system stays on-prem, if the other systems is in the cloud, I introduce artificial latency, my overall sales order processing will slow way down. So you're looking at network traffic between the systems, and what we did is we got all the experts into a room for a specific business area and said, hey, you guys are the experts, figure it out, what is dependent on each other. Oh yeah, sales orders, that's right, global trade, supply, yeah, we got to move those 3 together. So we built these move groups and then moved them as one. Same with some of those upstream and downstream systems. We have some legacy stuff that's highly latency critical. We decided we're going to go on this date. You legacy guys, you better come with us. Otherwise, you'll see some business impact. And then, of course, most important, determine your Azure region strategy. Everything that's talkative, real-time talkative to each other, should be in the same region. If you're moving one system to US West and the other system to US East, well, speed of light only gets you that far, right? So you want to make sure they're in the same region. By the way, same for your DR systems. We did a DR exercise. We're doing this on a regular basis. And suddenly some performance issues popped up. Well, what happened? One of the legacy systems decided to do a different DR region than ours. Well, sorry, we told you we're going to move to US East. So why didn't you go to that same location? So make sure you put that region down solid and make sure that's a corporate kind of policy. Also, SAP has a ton of bolt-on systems, as you know, text processors, text calculation engines, batch job systems. Make sure those are all either Azure certified or you have extra testing a lot of these companies are kind of small to mid-sized. They don't necessarily do cloud certification. And so, in our case, we involved our compliance people kind of late. In hindsight, I wish we would have done it a bit earlier. Make it an official project. Don't do it like us. This was all done on the weekends and in spare time. That was freaking brutal. Make it an officially funded project. You could easily do this in 6 to 12 months if it's a fully funded project. And then last but not least, archive and compress. It's Azure. You pay for the actual use. It's not like on-premise. Hey, we bought the storage array. It's there. Let's fill it up. It's free. Right? So present your business with multiple options. Here's the Cadillac plan. And you're going to keep all the data, and it's going to cost you this much money. And if you, archive and delete, then we're going to give you the Chevy plan or the Ford plan, and you're going to pay a lot less. And that's what we did, and we were actually able to talk the business into deleting some data. Not as much as I wanted, but hey, I'm going to take it. So lots of options there. And then, the last but not least, cost optimization for us is super critical. We're constantly looking at ways, how can we squeeze some extra dollars out? We talked about the initial right sizing, the tight sizing. The snoozing is key, and snoozing needs to be easy. Snoozing needs to be easy in a way that gives me options with folks to easily start up systems or close them down. And so what we did is we built a little Power App, and this is actual production app. I got to be careful what I'm pushing there. And so while this is loading, sorry, the Wi-Fi is kind of crappy. There's some screenshots. These are all my dev and test systems and sandboxes, and they're actually snoozed or running, and I can use this little Power App to execute PowerShell scripts in the back, and it's loading here, and then I can start and stop systems. For some of the sandboxes, we actually did it that, they're now snoozed by default. We're allowing them to power up via this app. So I can kind of click here, and you see there's start and stop buttons. And if I have a system that's actually snoozed, then I can go in and fire it up. So here, e-recruiting, the sandboxes and the test system is down. You see those, start buttons are lit up. So I could start this, and I'm going to get out of it before I start them up by accident. And only the developers and the basis people have access to this Power App. An intern built this. It's super easy. The PowerShell script's going to be on GitHub sometime in December or early January. So snooze as much as you can for those, pay-as-you-go instances. Obviously, for the reserved instances, you don't have to do that. As far as material, lots of links. This app is available on the Ignite side. I recommend search for this, fire up Bing or Google if you have to, running SAP apps on the Microsoft platform. It's a great blog. This is the Azure product team that runs this blog together with our internal basis team. I can tell you, like I said, we're the only platform vendor that runs on SAP, that runs on our own cloud. The collaboration with the product group is super tight. My head basis architect, she's married to the development manager from Azure. So it doesn't get much tighter than that. We're doing daily feedback of, hey, we don't like this, we'd like to have this capability, whatever, and they're doing it for us. And so we're running this blog together. Elke Bregler and Jürgen Thomas, you might have heard Jürgen Thomas's name before. He's kind of a known quantity in the SAP world. So yeah, and then if you have any questions, hit me up, hans.reuter@microsoft.com. I'll be happy to help with any questions, and if I don't know the answer, I'll find you somebody who does. Thank you very much, and I'll be available for questions over here. Thanks.